I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from. The phone call came at 6:15 in the morning, and I knew immediately something was wrong. I'd been awake for over an hour already at Crestwood Meadows, finishing the routine I'd maintained since boot camp 47 years ago. 20 wall push-ups, 50 crunches. My breath measured my mind clear. My body was 69 years old, but it didn't feel frail. It felt sharp, coiled, ready. The arthritis in my right hand throbbed as I pulled on my cardigan. I reached for the pill bottle on my nightstand, the anti-inflammatory I rationed carefully because my stepson Adam controlled my bank accounts now. 2 pills left until next month. I swallowed one dry and saved the other. That's when the knock came. Jessica, the young nurse who'd started at Crestwood 3 months ago, stood in my doorway. Her hands were shaking. "Mrs. Harris, there's a phone call for you. It's from Central Hospital." My stomach dropped, but my face stayed calm. Years of military training taught me that much. "Put it through to the desk phone, please." I walked down the sterile hallway, my slippers silent on the linoleum. Other residents were still sleeping. The morning shift hadn't started their rounds yet. Everything was quiet except for the hum of fluorescent lights overhead. The phone receiver felt cold against my ear. "This is Shirley Harris." "Mrs. Harris," a child's voice, young, frightened, crying. "Leia, my granddaughter, 10 years old." "Sweetheart, what's wrong?" "Grandma," she was sobbing now, the words coming in gasps. "Grandma, it's Mommy. They hurt her really bad. There's blood and she won't wake up and—" "Slow down, baby, where are you?" "Central Hospital. The nurse let me use her phone. Grandma, I'm so scared. Uncle Adam said if Mommy tells anyone he'll make sure you never get out of that place. He said the line went dead, not disconnected, grabbed away. I heard a man's voice in the background, angry and sharp before silence. My hand gripped the phone so tight my knuckles went white. The arthritis pain shot up my arm, but I barely felt it. Clara, my daughter, in the hospital, and Adam, my stepson, the man who'd promised to take care of me in my golden years, was involved. I set the phone down carefully. My mind was already working through the tactical situation. I'd been planning my escape from Crestwood for 3 months, ever since I'd discovered the truth about what Adam had done. The power of attorney he'd convinced me to sign 2 years ago wasn't the safety measure he'd claimed. It was a trap. He'd frozen my bank accounts, sold my car, had me declared incompetent to manage my own affairs. And now my daughter was in the hospital and my granddaughter was terrified. The problem was simple. If I left Crestwood without authorization, Adam would use it as proof that I was confused, a danger to myself. He'd have me locked up in the dementia ward, medicated into compliance. But if I stayed here while Clara was hurt, no, that wasn't an option. I walked back to my room, moving slowly so Jessica wouldn't be alarmed. Inside, I closed the door and sat on my bed. My hands were shaking not from fear, but from rage I'd been suppressing for 2 years. I picked up the small notebook I kept hidden in my pillowcase. Inside were 3 phone numbers I'd memorized and written down. Insurance policies for the day I'd need them. The first number was Dr. Pete Rodriguez. We'd served together in Afghanistan back when I was Major Shirley Harris, U.S. Army Nurse Corps. I'd kept pressure on his femoral artery for 3 hours while insurgent fire prevented medevac. He'd told me that day, "I owe you my life, Shirley. Anything you need, ever." I dialed his personal cell. It rang 4 times. Then his familiar voice rough with sleep and cigarettes. "Rodriguez." "Pete, it's Shirley Harris." A pause. "Shirley Jesus, it's been, 3 years? How are you? I'm at Crestwood Meadows in Boston. I need to get out. My daughter's in Central Hospital and I think she's been seriously hurt. Can you help me?" Another pause, longer this time. "What's the situation with your stepson, the power of attorney? Still in effect. If I walk out of here, he'll use it against me." I heard Pete exhale slowly. "I'm in San Diego right now. Medical conference. I can't fly back until tomorrow afternoon." My heart sank. "I understand. Wait, listen. I can write you an emergency medical consultation order remotely. It won't hold up under serious scrutiny, but it'll get you out the door legally. You'll have maybe 24 hours before your stepson can challenge it. That's all I need." "Shirley." His voice dropped. "Be careful. If your daughter's hurt and your stepson's involved, this could get ugly." "I know. You still remember your training every day, Pete. Good. I'll have the paperwork sent to Crestwood within the hour. Official consultation request from Central Hospital for a patient with complex medical history. You're the only family member with the expertise to consult. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. And Shirley, whatever you're planning, don't do anything that'll give him ammunition. I hung up and sat in the dim morning light, waiting. 55 minutes later, Jessica knocked again. Mrs. Harris, there's been a request from Central Hospital. They need you for a medical consultation regarding your daughter. I was already dressed. I'd put on my best clothes, a navy cardigan, simple slacks, low heels I could run in if necessary. In my purse, my old military ID, my nursing credentials, and the small notebook with phone numbers. The Crestwood manager, a thin man named Dennis Kowalski, was waiting at the front desk. He had my file open, Adam's contact information highlighted. Mrs. Harris, I'm not sure about this. Your stepson left very specific instructions that you're not to leave the facility without his written consent. I looked him in the eye. Mr. Kowalski, that request comes from the Chief of Staff at Central Hospital. My daughter has been admitted to the ER with serious injuries, and they need someone with both family knowledge and medical expertise. Are you refusing to allow me to fulfill my professional obligations? He hesitated. I should call Mr. Harris first. My daughter is in the emergency room. Every minute counts. If something happens to her because you delayed my consultation, will you explain that to the hospital's legal team? Jessica, standing behind the desk, spoke up quietly. Mr. Kowalski, the paperwork is all in order. Dr. Rodriguez is Chief of Staff. This is official hospital business. Dennis looked between us, then sighed. Fine, but you need to be back within 12 hours, Mrs. Harris. And I'm noting in your file that you left against my recommendation. Noted. 20 minutes later, I was in a taxi heading toward Central Hospital. Boston traffic was heavy even at 8:00 a.m. I watched the city pass by places I'd lived, worked, raised my daughter. All of it felt distant now, like watching someone else's life. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Jessica. I put my personal cell in your purse. If you need anything, call me. I believe you, Mrs. Harris. About everything. I looked down at my purse and found a slip of paper with her number. The girl was smarter than I'd thought, and braver. The taxi pulled up to Central Hospital's main entrance at 8:47 a.m. I paid the driver with the small amount of cash Jessica had slipped into my purse, along with her number, then walked through the automatic doors. The smell hit me first, antiseptic floor cleaner, that particular scent of human suffering that never leaves hospitals. I'd spent 30 years in places like this. Military hospitals, field hospitals, emergency rooms from Germany to Iraq to right here in Boston. I walked to the information desk. I'm here to see Clara Rakes. She was admitted to the ER this morning. The woman at the desk typed on her computer. Are you family? I'm her mother, Shirley Harris. She's in ER Bay 7, 3rd floor, but visiting hours don't start until... I'm also a registered nurse. Dr. Rodriguez requested my consultation. Her expression changed. Oh, yes, you're on the approved list. Go ahead up. The elevator ride to the 3rd floor felt like it took hours. My reflection in the polished doors showed a woman I barely recognized. Gray hair pulled back in a bun, deep lines around my eyes, hands that looked older than I felt inside. The ER floor was controlled chaos. Nurses moved between curtained bays. Machines beeped. Someone was crying behind a closed door. Bay 7 was at the end of the hall. I pulled back the curtain and felt something inside me turn to ice. Clara was lying in the hospital bed, her face a mask of bruises. Her left eye was swollen completely shut, purple and black, spreading down her cheek. Her right arm was in a cast from wrist to elbow. There were fingerprint-shaped bruises on her neck, dark purple marks where someone had choked her. But worse than the physical injuries was the look in her one good eye when she saw me. Terror, shame, despair. Mom, her voice was barely a whisper. You shouldn't be here. If Adam finds out... I don't care about Adam right now. I moved to her bedside, my nurse's training taking over. I picked up her chart and scanned it. Ulnar fracture, multiple deep tissue contusions, cracked 7th rib, mild concussion, bruising consistent with manual strangulation. I'd seen injuries like this before, too many times. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a fall. This was assault. Who did this to you? I kept my voice calm, professional. Inside, I was anything but. Clara's face crumpled. Mom, I can't. They said if I tell anyone, they'll take Leia away from me. They'll say I'm an unfit mother and… Clara. I set down the chart and took her uninjured hand gently. Look at me, sweetheart. I'm not going to let anyone take Leia, but I need to know what happened. She was silent for a long moment. Then, in a voice so quiet I had to lean in to hear, it was Dustin. My son-in-law, the man my daughter had married 8 years ago against my advice. I'd seen something wrong in him from the start, the way he controlled conversations, the subtle put-downs he'd aim at Clara, the way he'd isolated her from her friends. He lost money gambling again. Clara continued, her words coming faster now, like a dam breaking. He came home drunk and angry, started yelling about how I'd hidden money from him, how I was keeping secrets. I told him I didn't have any money, that he'd taken everything from my account months ago, and he just lost it. Tears were streaming down her face now, mixing with the dried blood at the corner of her mouth. His mother and sister were there. Brenda and Karen. Mom. They held my arms while he hit me. Brenda kept saying I deserved it, that I needed to learn respect. Karen was laughing. The ice in my chest spread through my whole body. Where's Leia? Still at the house, with them. Mom, she saw everything. She tried to stop Dustin and he shoved her into a wall. She's terrified and I can't protect her from there. You're going to stay here, I said firmly. You have a severe concussion. Dr. Rodriguez will confirm that you need to remain under observation for at least 72 hours. Leia will be safe. I'm going to make sure of that. Mom, you don't understand. Dustin will hurt you. And Adam… She grabbed my hand, her grip surprisingly strong despite her injuries. Adam and Dustin have been talking. I heard them on the phone last month. Adam pays Dustin to keep me quiet about you, to make sure I don't help you get out of Crestwood. They're working together. There it was, the final piece of the puzzle. I'd suspected something like this, but hearing it confirmed made everything clear. Adam needed me isolated, unable to access my money, unable to interfere with whatever he was planning. And keeping Clara under Dustin's control was part of that plan. How long has this been going on? I asked. The abuse. Clara looked down at her cast. 18 months. It started small, pushing, grabbing too hard. Then it got worse. Brenda and Karen moved in 6 months ago and they encouraged it, made it worse. They tell Dustin I'm lazy, that I don't respect him, that I need to be taught a lesson. And Leia, they haven't hit her. Not yet. But Kyle, Karen's son, he bullies her constantly. Takes her toys, locks her in the closet when she cries. Brenda tells him he's toughening her up. Mom, Leia barely speaks anymore. She's so scared all the time. I stood up, my decision made. I'm going to the house. No! Clara tried to sit up, winced in pain. Mom, they'll hurt you. I'm what old… I smiled, but there was no humor in it. Clara, I spent 30 years in combat zones. I've triaged soldiers who'd stepped on IEDs. I've performed surgery under mortar fire. Your husband and his family are about to learn that age and frailty are not the same thing. But Adam will use this against you. He'll say you're unstable, that you're putting yourself in danger. Let him try. I leaned down and kissed her forehead gently, careful of the bruises. You rest. Get your strength back. I'm going to handle this. Mom, her voice cracked. Please be careful. I always am, sweetheart. I walked out of the ER bay and found a nurse at the station. I need to speak with Dr. Rodriguez. He's not on duty today. Call him. Tell him Major Harris needs him to make sure Clara Rakes stays here for observation. At least 72 hours. Doctor's orders. The nurse looked at me uncertainly, but something in my voice must have convinced her. Yes, ma'am? I headed for the elevator, my mind already mapping out the next steps. I needed to get to Leia. I needed to gather evidence. And I needed to do it all before Adam found out I'd left Crestwood. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Shirley, it's Pete. I got your message from the nurse. Clara's staying here under my direct supervision. I'll make sure she's safe. You do what you need to do. But Shirley, don't do anything stupid. Document everything. Stay legal. Understand? I texted back. Understood. Thank you. Another text appeared immediately. And Shirley, Adam called me 10 minutes ago. He knows you're out. He's threatening legal action. You've got maybe 4 hours before he shows up with lawyers and tries to have you committed. Use them wisely. 4 hours. I stepped out of the hospital into the bright morning sun. The address Clara had given me months ago before Dustin had forbidden her from contacting me was in Dorchester. A 20-minute drive. I flagged another taxi. The house was a 2-story colonial that had seen better days. The lawn was overgrown, paint peeled from the shutters. A rusted pickup truck sat in the driveway next to a newer sedan. I paid the taxi driver and stood on the sidewalk for a moment studying the house. Upstairs, a curtain twitched. Someone was watching. I walked up the cracked concrete path and knocked on the front door. It opened almost immediately. A heavy-set woman in her mid-50s stood there, blonde hair badly dyed, a cigarette dangling from her lips. Brenda Rakes. I recognized her from the single-family gathering I'd been allowed to attend before Adam had started isolating me. "Oh, it's you." Her voice was flat, bored. "Clara's not here." "I know. I just came from the hospital." "Clumsy girl falling down the stairs like that." Brenda took a drag on her cigarette, blew smoke in my direction. "Well, you can come in, I guess. Sleep on the pull-out couch in the basement. Kitchen's a mess. Make yourself useful." She turned and walked back into the house, leaving the door open. I stepped inside and had to suppress my immediate reaction. The smell hit me first: stale beer, old food, cigarette smoke, something sour and unwashed underneath it all. The living room was a disaster. Empty pizza boxes stacked on the coffee table. Dirty dishes on every surface. The carpet was stained with God knows what. A thinner woman, maybe 30, sat on a sagging couch, eyes glued to a television blaring some reality show. Karen Mitchell, I assumed. Clara's sister-in-law. Neither of them looked at me. "Bathroom's upstairs if you need it," Brenda said, settling back onto the couch. "Don't use all the hot water." I set my purse down carefully by the door. "Where's Leia?" "The kid in her room." Brenda waved vaguely toward the back of the house. "She's been moping all day." Dramatic little thing. I walked through the house past the filthy kitchen where dishes were piled so high in the sink that water couldn't drain. Down a short hallway to a small room that was barely more than a closet. Leia sat on the floor in the corner clutching a doll. The doll's head was missing. My granddaughter looked up at me with eyes too old for a 10-year-old. She had a small bruise on her forehead, and her arms were wrapped around herself protectively. "Grandma," her voice was barely a whisper. I knelt down slowly, my knees protesting. "Hi, sweetheart." "You came." "Of course I came." I reached out carefully, not wanting to scare her. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, but I could see the lie in her eyes. "I'm okay. Is Mommy okay?" "Mommy's going to be fine. She's at the hospital where doctors are taking care of her." "Can I see her?" "Soon, baby. Very soon." I looked around the small room. A mattress on the floor with a thin blanket. No other furniture. No toys except the broken doll. "This is your room." Leia nodded. "Kyle used to be in here, but Grandma Brenda said I had to switch with him because his room wasn't big enough for all his video games." Of course she did. "Hey, stupid." I turned to see a boy standing in the doorway. He was big for his age, maybe 10 or 11, already developing the kind of bulk that came from too much fast food and not enough exercise. Kyle Mitchell, Karen's son. He grinned a mean twist to his mouth that reminded me of playground bullies I'd seen in every corner of the world. "You still crying?" He stepped into the room, reached down and snatched the doll from Leia's hands. She made a small, helpless sound, but didn't resist. Just pulled her knees tighter to her chest and looked down. "This thing is trash anyway." Kyle held up the doll, grabbed its remaining arm, and started to twist it. "Should just throw it out." I stood up slowly. My knees ached. My right hand throbbed, but my voice was calm. "Put the doll down, please." Kyle looked at me like I was speaking another language. "What, the doll? Put it down." "Or what?" He laughed. "You're just some old lady. You can't tell me what to do." I took a step toward him, not threatening, just closing the distance. "I'm asking you nicely. Put the doll down and leave Leia alone." "Kyle," Brenda's voice called from the living room. "Come here, honey." The boy dropped the doll on the floor, gave Leia a shove with his foot as he passed, not hard enough to really hurt, but enough to make her flinch, and walked out. I picked up the doll and handed it back to Leia. "Here you go, sweetheart." She took it with both hands, holding it like it was precious. "Thank you, Grandma." "You're welcome." I sat down next to her on the floor, my back against the wall. "Leia, I need to ask you something important. Can you be very brave for me?" She nodded. "Has Kyle hurt you, hit you, or pushed you?" A small nod. Sometimes, when Grandma Brenda tells him to teach me manners. My jaw clenched, but I kept my voice gentle. And has Dustin or Brenda or Karen hurt you? Not hit. But Grandma Brenda locked me in the closet yesterday when I cried too loud. For 3 hours. Her voice got even quieter. It was dark and I was scared. I pulled her close, felt her small body trembling. It's going to be okay, baby. Grandma's here now. I'm not going to let anyone hurt you anymore. But what if they hurt you like they hurt Mommy? They won't. How do you know? I smiled at her, a real smile this time. Because I'm a lot tougher than I look. I spent the rest of the day observing, watching, documenting. Brenda and Karen sat on the couch for hours, smoking, watching TV, shouting orders. Get me a beer. Make dinner. Clean up this mess. They assumed I would obey, that I was just another woman they could control. I made dinner simple pasta with jarred sauce, the only edible food I could find in the filthy kitchen. I cleaned the dishes, wiped down the counters, swept the floor. All the while watching, listening, remembering. Kyle came down around 6:00 p.m., looked at Leia, and said, Mom, can I have Leia's dessert? She doesn't deserve it anyway. Karen not even looking up from her phone. Sure, honey, take it. Leia said nothing, just looked down at her plate. I took a photo with my phone when they weren't looking. Then another of the filthy bathroom, the broken lock on Leia's door, the marks on the wall where it looked like something or someone had been thrown against it. At 8:00 p.m., Brenda announced, We're going to bed. You can sleep on the couch. Don't mess with the TV settings. They went upstairs. I heard doors close, the sound of a shower running. I waited until the house was quiet, then I started searching. Quietly, carefully, the way I'd been trained. In Dustin's home office, a converted dining room with a desk buried under bills and papers, I found what I was looking for. Casino receipts. Hundreds of them. Dustin owed $47,000 to various establishments in Connecticut and Rhode Island. Credit card statements showing cash advances all maxed out. And then tucked into a folder marked Important Documents, I found a printout of an email exchange from aharris@harrisonlegal.com to drakes@gmail. Come subject our arrangement. Dustin, as we discussed, I'll continue the monthly payments, $2,000, as long as you keep Clara under control. She cannot be allowed to contact my stepmother or interfere with the estate planning. If Clara becomes a problem, make sure she understands the consequences. Remember, if Shirley gets out of Crestwood or regains access to her accounts, we both lose everything. The house sale needs to go through before she can challenge the power of attorney. Keep me updated. Adam, from drakes@gmail.com to aharris@harrisonlegal.com. Subject RE, our arrangement. What if Clara threatens to go to the police? From aharris@harrisonlegal.com to drakes@gmail.com. Subject RE, our arrangement. Make sure she's too afraid to try. Do what you need to do. If it goes too far and she files a report, I'll provide documentation that she's mentally unstable. I have a psychiatrist who'll testify she suffers from depression and delusions. No one will believe her. Just keep her quiet until the house sale is final. Then we split the proceeds as agreed 60-40 in my favor. I took photos of every page with my phone, my hand steady despite the rage building in my chest. There was more. A contract for something called Rakes Family Trust, LLC. Members listed Adam Harris, Dustin Rakes, Brenda Rakes. They'd formed a company. To do what, I kept searching and found the answer in another folder, a purchase and sale agreement for my house in Cambridge. The house I'd bought 40 years ago with my first husband before he died. The house where I'd raised Clara. The house that was supposed to be mine. Sale price $780,000. Seller Shirley Harris, represented by power of attorney. Adam Harris, Buyer Rakes Family Trust, LLC. They were selling my house to themselves, using the power of attorney to sign my name, planning to pocket the money and leave me with nothing. The closing date was in 3 days. I photographed everything. Then I carefully put it all back exactly as I'd found it. My phone buzzed. A text from Jessica. Mr. Harris came to Crestwood tonight. He's furious. He filed a report saying you've been kidnapped. Police might come looking for you. Be careful. I texted back. Thank you. I'm safe. Another buzz. Pete Rodriguez. Adam's lawyer contacted the hospital. They're claiming you're not competent to be Clara's medical proxy. I'm stalling them, but you need a lawyer. Fast. I had one more number in my notebook. Grace Martinez. We'd served together in Iraq. She'd gone to law school after her discharge, specialized in elder abuse cases. I called her. Grace Martinez. Grace, it's Shirley Harris. A pause then. Shirley, my God, I haven't heard from you in years. How are you? I've been better. I need a lawyer. Elder abuse fraud, possibly conspiracy. Can you help me? Tell me everything. I did. All of it. Clara's injuries, the emails, the house sale, Adam's manipulation. By the time I finished, it was nearly midnight. Jesus, Shirley. Grace's voice was tight with anger. This is bad. Really bad. But it's also prosecutable. The problem is timing. If Adam gets to a judge first and has you declared incompetent, everything you've gathered becomes questionable. So what do I do? You need to stay exactly where you are for now. Don't do anything that gives them ammunition. I'm going to file an emergency motion tomorrow morning to challenge the power of attorney. But Shirley, we need more than emails and photos. We need testimony. We need witnesses who can confirm that you're completely competent. I have Jessica, the nurse from Crestwood. Good. Anyone else? Pete Rodriguez. And I hesitated. I think I can get Dustin to confess. On tape. How that? Leave that to me. Grace was quiet for a moment. Shirley, don't do anything dangerous. Please. I won't, but I am going to do what's necessary. After I hung up, I sat in the dark office thinking, planning. I heard footsteps upstairs. Someone going to the bathroom. Water running. Then silence again. I went back to Leia's room and checked on her. She was asleep, clutching her broken doll. I pulled the thin blanket up over her shoulders and sat against the wall. I didn't sleep. I kept watch. At 3:00 a.m., I heard a car pull into the driveway. The engine was too loud, the brakes squealed. Dustin was home. I listened to him stumble through the front door, heard him curse as he knocked something over. His footsteps were heavy, uneven. Drunk. Clara. His voice was slurred, angry. Where the hell are you? Get me a beer. I stood up quietly and moved to Leia's doorway. She was awake now, eyes wide with fear. Stay here, I whispered. Don't come out no matter what you hear. She nodded. I walked down the hallway toward the living room. Dustin stood in the middle of the room, swaying slightly. He was a big man, 6 feet tall, broad-shouldered, but running to fat. His shirt was untucked tie, crooked. His face was flushed red eyes, bloodshot. He saw me and stopped, squinted. Who the hell are you? I'm Shirley Harris, Clara's mother. I'm here to watch Leia while my daughter's in the hospital. He stared at me for a long moment, his alcohol-fogged brain trying to process. Then his expression darkened. You're the old bitch Clara's always crying about, the one Adam locked up in the nursing home. That's me. He took a step toward me, his hands clenched into fists. Get out of my house. No. The word hung in the air between us. Dustin wasn't used to being told no. I could see it in the way his face twisted, the way his body tensed. He'd been the alpha in this house for so long, using fear and violence to maintain control. He moved faster than I expected for a drunk man, his arms swinging up in a wide backhand aimed at my face. I was faster. I stepped inside the swing toward him instead of away. His fist passed harmlessly over my shoulder. I used his momentum against him, my hands on his arm and chest, guiding his weight forward and down. He went sprawling over the coffee table, which collapsed under his weight with a crash of splintering wood. For a moment, he just lay there, stunned. Then he roared a sound of pure rage and pushed himself up. He lunged at me, arms outstretched, trying to grab to overpower. I sidestepped. Simple footwork, nothing fancy. As he passed, I drove my elbow hard into his solar plexus, right at the cluster of nerves beneath the sternum. The air exploded from his lungs. His legs buckled, and he collapsed to his hands and knees, choking, retching. My right hand was screaming in pain from the impact. The arthritis flared hot and sharp, but I kept my face neutral. You know, I said conversationally, standing over him, my daughter didn't fight back. I'm not sure why. Perhaps she thought you'd change. Perhaps she was protecting Leia, but I have no such constraints. He tried to grab my ankle. I stepped back out of reach. Here's what's going to happen, Dustin. You're going to calm down. You're going to sit in that chair, and you're going to listen to what I have to say. I'll kill you. He was still gasping for air. No, you won't, because if you try, I'll hurt you much worse than this. I was a combat medic for 30 years. I know exactly where and how to hit to cause maximum pain with minimum effort. And unlike you, I'm completely sober. I pulled my phone from my pocket and held it up so he could see the screen. I also have photos of what you did to Clara. And I have copies of your emails with Adam. The ones about keeping her quiet. About the house sale. About the money you're being paid to abuse my daughter. His face went pale. So here's your choice. You can try to fight me again and I'll call the police right now. They'll arrest you for assault both on me and on Clara. You'll go to jail. Or you can sit down, shut up, and we can have a civilized conversation about how you're going to fix this mess you've created. He sat down, not in the chair, but on the floor, still trying to catch his breath. Upstairs, I heard doors opening. Brenda's voice sharp with alarm. Dustin, what's going on down there? Footsteps on the stairs. Brenda appeared first, wrapped in a stained bathrobe, Karen right behind her in an oversized t-shirt. They saw Dustin on the floor, saw the broken coffee table, saw me standing there with my phone out. What the hell did you do to my son? Brenda's voice was shrill. He attacked me. I defended myself. You attacked him, you crazy old... She started toward me. I held up my phone. I have video of him swinging at me first. I also have photos of what he did to Clara. And I have copies of the emails between Dustin and my stepson Adam about their arrangement. So if you take one more step toward me, Brenda, I will call the police and have all three of you arrested right now. She stopped. What emails? I don't know what you're talking about. The ones about selling my house. The ones about the Rakes Family Trust. The ones where Adam pays Dustin $2,000 a month to keep Clara too terrified to ask for help. Karen's face went pale. Mom, what is she talking about? What house sale? Brenda shot her a look. Shut up, Karen. No, I won't shut up. What house sale? What arrangement? This was interesting. Clearly Karen didn't know everything. Maybe Brenda didn't either. Dustin, I said calmly, why don't you tell your mother and sister what you and Adam have been planning? He looked up at me with pure hatred. Fuck you. Or I can call the police right now and they can explain it at the station. Dustin, Brenda's voice had changed. There was an edge to it now, sharp and dangerous. What is she talking about? He finally spoke, his voice hoarse. Adam and I made a deal. He'd sell the old bitch's house and we'd split the money. I just had to make sure Clara didn't interfere. How much money? Karen asked. $780,000. The room went silent. 700, Karen's voice rose. Are you telling me you've been planning to make almost $800,000 and you didn't tell us? It wasn't finalized yet. How much was Mom getting? Karen turned to Brenda. How much of that money was coming to us? Brenda said nothing. Oh my God. Karen laughed, but there was no humor in it. You were going to cut me out, weren't you? You and Dustin were going to take it all. Don't be ridiculous. You lying bitch. Karen shoved her mother hard. While I'm working double shifts at the diner, living in your disgusting house, taking care of your grandson, you were planning to screw me over. They started screaming at each other. Brenda and Karen, mother and daughter, years of resentment boiling over. Dustin just sat there watching his family implode. I let them fight for a minute, then said clearly, enough. They all stopped and looked at me. Here's what's going to happen. Tomorrow morning, Dustin is going to the hospital to see Clara. He's going to apologize. He's going to sign whatever divorce papers she wants. And he's going to transfer $50,000 from his share of the house sale into an account for Leah. Like hell I will, Dustin started. Or I call the police right now. Your choice. He glared at me but said nothing. And you too. I looked at Brenda and Karen. You're going to pack your things and leave this house by noon tomorrow. You're going to leave Leah alone. You're never going to contact her or Clara again. Do you understand? This is our house, Brenda began. No, it's Dustin's house. And soon it'll be Clara's house after the divorce. You have no legal right to be here. So you can leave voluntarily, or I can call the police and show them the photos of the conditions you've been keeping a child in. Locked in closets, bullied, neglected. I'm sure Child Protective Services would be very interested. Brenda's mouth opened and closed like a fish. My phone buzzed. A text from Grace. Shirley, I just heard from a contact at the police department. Adam filed a missing persons report on you. He's claiming you're mentally incompetent and in danger. They're looking for you right now. 4 hours, Pete had said. I'd had more like 8, but now time was up. I looked at the 3 people in front of me. Dustin still on the floor. Brenda and Karen staring at me with varying degrees of hatred and fear, and made my decision. Actually, forget what I just said. We're going to do this differently. I dialed 911. Yes, I need to report a domestic violence situation. My name is Shirley Harris. I'm at, I gave them the address. My son-in-law assaulted me tonight. I defended myself, but I'm concerned for my safety and the safety of my granddaughter. Please send officers immediately. I hung up. What are you doing? Dustin's voice was panicked now. I didn't assault you, you attacked me. Really, because I have video of you swinging at me first, and I have witnesses. I looked toward Leia's room. Leia, sweetheart, can you come out here, please? My granddaughter appeared in the hallway, her eyes wide. Leia, did you see what happened? She nodded. Uncle Dustin tried to hit you and you stopped him. You little bitch. Dustin started to stand. Sit. Down. My voice cracked like a whip. Don't you dare speak to her that way. He sat. In the distance I heard sirens. Brenda found her voice. You can't do this. Adam will have you locked up. He has power of attorney. He'll say you're crazy, that you're making all this up. Adam's power of attorney is being challenged in court tomorrow morning. My lawyer has already filed the emergency motion, and I have a chief of staff at Central Hospital willing to testify that I'm completely competent, plus all the evidence I've gathered tonight. So no Brenda. Adam isn't going to save you. The sirens were getting closer. Karen made a run for it, heading for the back door. Stop right there, I called out. There are police outside by now. If you run, you just make it worse. She froze. 2 police cars pulled up outside. I could see the lights through the front window. Heavy footsteps on the porch. A knock at the door. I opened it. 2 officers stood there, a young one who looked fresh out of the academy and an older one with gray hair and tired eyes. His nameplate read Miller. Ma'am, we got a call about an assault. Yes, officer. I'm Shirley Harris, my son-in-law. I gestured to Dustin. Came home intoxicated and attacked me. I defended myself. I'd like to file a report. Sergeant Miller looked past me at the scene, the broken coffee table, Dustin sitting on the floor, Brenda and Karen hovering uncertainly. Is anyone injured? I'm not. He might have some bruising, but that's from his own momentum. I simply redirected his attack. The young officer raised his eyebrows. You redirected his attack. I'm a retired Army nurse officer. 30 years of service. I was trained in self-defense. Sergeant Miller was studying me more carefully now. Ma'am, have we met before? Perhaps at the VA. I volunteer there sometimes. His eyes widened slightly. Are you Major Harris? From the VA hospital? I smiled. I was Major Harris, yes. He caught himself. Ma'am, you stitched up my partner back in '95. Car accident on Route 93. I was with state police then. Sergeant Miller, I remember. How is Officer Patterson? Retired now, living in Florida. He still talks about how you saved his life. Miller looked at Dustin with new understanding. Sir, did you really try to assault a 69-year-old woman? She attacked me first, Dustin protested. That's not what it looks like from here. Miller turned back to me. Ma'am, do you want to press charges? Before I could answer, my phone rang. Unknown number, I answered. Mrs. Harris, this is Agent Sarah Park, FBI. I need you to stay exactly where you are. Don't let anyone leave that house. We're 3 minutes away. I blinked. The FBI? Your lawyer, Grace Martinez, contacted us this afternoon about a potential elder abuse and fraud case involving interstate wire transfers and identity theft. We've been building a case against your stepson, Adam Harris, for the past 2 weeks. The evidence you gathered tonight, the emails, the house sale documents, that's exactly what we needed. We're executing search warrants right now at 3 locations, including that one. Just keep everyone there until we arrive. The line went dead. I looked at Sergeant Miller. Officer, I think we need to wait a few minutes. The FBI is on their way. He raised his eyebrows, but nodded. All right, ma'am. 3 minutes later, 2 black SUVs pulled up outside. Agent Sarah Park was not what I expected. She stepped out of the lead SUV wearing a dark pantsuit and sensible flats, her black hair pulled back in a tight bun, maybe 40 years old with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Behind her, 3 more agents emerged, all business. She walked straight to me, badge already out. Mrs. Harris, Agent Park, FBI. We spoke on the phone. Yes, ma'am. She glanced at Sergeant Miller. Officer, we're taking over from here. Federal investigation into elder financial abuse, wire fraud, and identity theft. Miller nodded, looking relieved. Yes, ma'am. We'll clear out. Actually, Agent Park said, we may need your assistance securing the scene. Can you and your partner stay? Of course. Agent Park turned to the three people huddled in the living room, Dustin still on the floor, Brenda and Karen frozen by the couch. Dustin rakes, Brenda rakes, Karen Mitchell. Don't move. Don't touch anything. We have a warrant to search these premises. She held up a document. Dustin's face went gray. What warrant for what? Brenda's voice was shrill. For evidence related to a conspiracy to commit elder abuse and fraud. One of my agents is going to read you your rights. I suggest you listen carefully. While another agent, a young man who looked like he'd played college football, began the Miranda warning, Agent Park pulled me aside. Mrs. Harris, your lawyer sent us the photos you took tonight. The emails between your stepson and Mr. Rakes, the house sale documents, everything. Combined with what we already had on Adam Harris, this gives us enough for arrest warrants. You said you've been investigating him for 2 weeks. She nodded. We got a tip from a forensic accountant at his law firm. She noticed irregularities in how he was handling estate accounts for elderly clients. Started digging, found a pattern. Your case was the most egregious, but you're not the only victim. My stomach dropped. How many others? At least 4 that we know of. Elderly clients who signed power of attorney documents and then mysteriously couldn't access their own money. Adam was funneling funds into shell companies selling off assets without proper authorization. We estimate he's stolen over $2 million in the past 3 years. $2 million from people who trusted him. Where is he now? I asked. In custody. We arrested him 20 minutes ago at his home in Newton. He's being processed downtown as we speak. She paused. Mrs. Harris, I need to ask, are you all right? You're not injured from the altercation. I'm fine. A little sore, but fine. And the child Leia? I looked toward the hallway where my granddaughter stood still clutching her broken doll, watching everything with wide eyes. She's scared but not hurt. Not physically, anyway. Agent Park's expression softened slightly. We're going to need to contact Child Protective Services. Given the circumstances her mother hospitalized her father about to be arrested, we need to make sure she has appropriate care. She'll stay with me. Mrs. Harris, with all respect, you're in a complicated legal situation right now. The power of attorney your stepson holds is being challenged in court tomorrow morning. My lawyer, Grace Martinez, can provide all the documentation you need, and Dr. Pete Rodriguez at Central Hospital will testify to my competence. I'm not letting my granddaughter go into the system. Agent Park studied me for a long moment. All right, let me make some calls, but she can't stay in this house tonight. Understood. The next hour was controlled chaos. FBI agents moved through the house with evidence bags and cameras documenting everything. They found more than I had: bank statements hidden in the basement, receipts for gambling losses tucked in drawers, even a ledger where Dustin had been tracking the money Adam paid him. Sergeant Miller took my statement. I kept it simple, factual. Dustin came home drunk. He attacked me. I defended myself. I called 911. Ma'am, Miller said when I finished, just so I'm clear, you put a man 6 inches taller and 80 pounds heavier than you on the ground with your bare hands. I redirected his momentum, officer. Basic physics. He shook his head, a small smile on his face. My partner was right about you. He always said you were the toughest person he ever met. By 4:30 a.m., they were putting Dustin in handcuffs. Dustin Rakes, you're under arrest for assault, conspiracy to commit fraud, and accessory to elder abuse. Agent Park read him his rights again as they let him out. Brenda tried to follow. Wait, where are you taking my son? Federal detention. He'll have an arraignment hearing tomorrow. Agent Park turned to her. Mrs. Rakes, we're not arresting you tonight, but don't leave the area. We'll have more questions. But I didn't do anything. I didn't know about any of this. That's what everyone says, ma'am. After Dustin was gone, Agent Park came back to me. Mrs. Harris, I need you to come downtown to give a full statement. But first, she looked at Leia. Let's get her somewhere safe. I'll take her to the hospital. To her mother. Agent Park nodded. I'll arrange transportation. And Mrs. Harris, thank you. What you did tonight, gathering that evidence, protecting your granddaughter, that took courage. I just did what needed to be done. Most people don't. Most people freeze, or they run, or they just accept the abuse because they think they're powerless. She handed me her card. If you ever need anything, call me directly. An FBI agent drove Leia and me to Central Hospital as the sun was rising. The city looked different in the early morning light, softer, somehow less threatening. Leia sat next to me in the back seat, her small hand in mine. She hadn't said much since the police arrived. Grandma? Her voice was tiny. Yes, sweetheart. Is Daddy going to jail? How do you explain this to a 10-year-old? How do you tell her that her father is a bad man without making her feel like she's bad too? Your daddy made some very wrong choices, baby. He hurt people. And when people hurt others, they have to face consequences. Did I make him hurt Mommy? My heart broke. No. Oh, Laya, no. You didn't make him do anything. Your daddy's choices were his own. None of this is your fault. But Grandma Brenda said I was bad. She said if I was better, Daddy wouldn't get so angry. I pulled her close. Grandma Brenda was wrong. You are a wonderful, kind, brave little girl. What happened in that house had nothing to do with you. She was quiet for a moment. Then, are you going to leave me too? Never. I'm never leaving you, sweetheart. I promise. We arrived at the hospital just after 6:00 a.m. The ER was quieter now, the overnight chaos giving way to the calm before the morning shift change. I found Clara still in Bay 7, awake but groggy from pain medication. When she saw Leia, she started to cry. Baby! Leia ran to the bedside. Clara wrapped her good arm around her daughter, pulled her close, kissed her hair over and over. I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry. Mommy should have protected you better. It's okay, Mommy. Grandma protected us. Clara looked at me over Leia's head. Her face was a question. What happened? It's done, I said quietly. Dustin's been arrested. So has Adam. The FBI is handling it. The FBI... It's a long story. I'll explain everything, but first... I looked at Leia. Sweetheart, do you want to go get some hot chocolate from the cafeteria? I need to talk to Mommy for a few minutes. A nurse I recognized from earlier, a kind-faced woman named Patricia, appeared in the doorway. I can take her. There's a good breakfast buffet on the second floor. Leia looked uncertain. It's okay, baby, Clara said. Go with Miss Patricia. Grandma and I will be right here. After they left, Clara grabbed my hand with surprising strength. Mom, what did you do? I told her everything. The house, the evidence I'd gathered, the confrontation with Dustin, the FBI raid. She listened without interrupting her expression, cycling through shock, fear, relief, and finally something like awe. You did all that in one night. I had help. Grace Martinez, Pete Rodriguez, a nurse named Jessica from Crestwood. And you, sweetheart. If you hadn't been brave enough to tell me the truth, none of this would have happened. I wasn't brave. I was terrified. Bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what's right despite the fear. I squeezed her hand gently. Clara, the FBI agent, told me something. Adam didn't just target me. He's been stealing from other elderly clients, too. At least 4 others that they know of. Oh my God. He used the same pattern. Gain their trust, get power of attorney, isolate them. Take their money. He's been doing this for years. Clara closed her eyes. I should have known. When he started pushing you to sign those papers, something felt wrong, but he was so convincing. He made it sound like he was protecting you. He fooled a lot of people. That's what con artists do. And Dustin, Mom, I'm so sorry. I should have left him years ago. I should have... Stop. You did what you thought you had to do to survive, to protect Leia. There's no shame in that. But I let him hurt me. I let him... He hurt you, I said firmly. You didn't let him do anything. He made the choice to be violent. That's on him, not you. She was crying now, silent tears streaming down her bruised face. I pulled a chair close to the bed and sat down. Clara, I need to ask you something important. What do you want to happen now? What do you mean with Dustin, with the house, with your life? What do you want to... She was quiet for a long time. Then, I want a divorce. I want full custody of Leia. I want him to never be able to come near us again. Okay, Grace Martinez specializes in family law too. She'll help you file. And the house? I don't want it, Mom. I can't live there. Too many bad memories. That's fine. We'll figure out something else. But where will we go? I don't have any money. Dustin controlled all the accounts and I haven't worked in 6 years. Clara, I waited until she looked at me. You remember that house in Cambridge, the one I bought when you were little? The one Adam sold. He hasn't sold it yet. The closing is supposed to be in 3 days, but it was fraudulent. The FBI is freezing all the assets involved in the case, which means the house is still legally mine. Her eyes widened. You're getting it back. Grace seems to think so. And once I do, you and Leia are moving in with me. We'll live there together until you get back on your feet. Mom, I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. Actually, I'm insisting. I smiled. Besides, that house is too big for just me. It needs a family in it again. Fresh tears, but these were different. Relief. Hope. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for not giving up on me. Never, sweetheart. Never. At 9:00 a.m., Grace Martinez arrived at the hospital with a folder full of documents. She was exactly as I remembered her tall, commanding presence, silver hair cut short, wearing a power suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent at Crestwood had been. But her smile was warm when she saw me. Shirley Harris. Still causing trouble, I see. Only for people who deserve it. She laughed and pulled me into a quick hug. I heard about last night. The FBI is very pleased with you. Just doing my civic duty. Right. She set her briefcase on the visitor's chair. Okay, let's talk strategy. I filed an emergency motion to void Adam's power of attorney on the grounds of fraud and undue influence. The hearing is at 2:00 p.m. today. That fast? Elder abuse cases get priority, especially when there's active financial harm happening. The FBI's involvement helps too. They're treating this as part of their larger investigation into Adam's activities. What do I need to do? Testify. Tell the judge exactly what happened, how Adam convinced you to sign the power of attorney, how he isolated you, how he's been controlling your assets. I'll have Dr. Rodriguez testify about your mental competence, and I'll present all the evidence you gathered last night. Will Adam be there? His lawyer will be. Adam himself is in federal custody, but his attorney will argue that the power of attorney should remain in effect pending the criminal trial. Can they do that? They can try. But between the FBI evidence, your testimony, and the fact that Adam is literally in jail for crimes against you, I don't think the judge will be sympathetic. Clara spoke up from the bed. What about my divorce? Can I file while Dustin's in custody? Grace turned to her with a professional smile. Absolutely. In fact, it's better to file now while he's facing criminal charges. It gives you leverage. How long have you been married? 8 years. Any joint assets besides the house? No. Dustin gambled everything away. Good. Well, not good, but it makes the division simple. I'll draft emergency custody papers for Leia and a restraining order against Dustin. We can file this afternoon. How much is this going to cost? Clara asked quietly. I don't have any money. Grace's expression softened. Your mother and I served together in Iraq. She saved my life during a mortar attack. I've been trying to repay that debt for 20 years. Consider this a start. I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. Grace winked at me. Runs in the family, apparently. At 1:30 p.m., Grace and I arrived at Suffolk County Superior Court. I'd borrowed clothes from Clara, a simple dress and cardigan that were a bit too big on me, but presentable. Grace had insisted I look respectable, but not overly formal. You want the judge to see a capable woman who's been victimized, not someone trying too hard, she'd explained. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected. Wood-paneled walls, high ceilings, an American flag in the corner. Judge Patricia Weinstein presided, a woman in her 60s with reading glasses on a chain and a no-nonsense expression. Adam's lawyer was already there. Harrison Blackwell, according to Grace. Expensive suit, silver hair, the kind of lawyer who represented white-collar criminals and made bank doing it. He stood when we entered, gave Grace a curt nod. Grace. Harrison. We sat at the plaintiff's table. I folded my hands in my lap and waited. Judge Weinstein entered at exactly 2:00 p.m. All rise. We stood. Be seated. We're here for an emergency motion in the matter of Harris versus Harris petitioner, seeking to void a power of attorney granted to Adam Harris. Ms. Martinez, you're representing the petitioner. Yes, Your Honor. Mr. Blackwell, you're representing the respondent. I am, Your Honor. Ms. Martinez, proceed. Grace stood and launched into her opening statement. She was brilliant, laying out the timeline of how Adam had manipulated me, isolated me, taking control of my assets. She presented bank statements showing my accounts being drained, documents about the house sale, copies of the emails between Adam and Dustin. Your Honor, this isn't just a family dispute. This is systematic elder abuse orchestrated by an attorney who used his legal expertise to exploit his stepmother. The FBI has arrested Mr. Adam Harris for fraud, identity theft, and elder abuse as part of a larger investigation into his activities. The power of attorney he obtained was procured through deception and is being used to commit crimes. Judge Weinstein looked at Blackwell. Counselor, your response? Blackwell stood smoothly. Your Honor, my client maintains that the power of attorney was granted voluntarily and that all actions taken under it were in Mrs. Harris's best interests. My client's current legal troubles are separate from this civil matter. The fact that he's been arrested doesn't automatically void a legally binding document. Your Honor, Grace interjected, may I call my first witness? Proceed. I call Dr. Pete Rodriguez. Pete walked in wearing his white coat, looking every inch the distinguished physician. He took the stand and was sworn in. Grace walked him through his credentials: Chief of Staff at Central Hospital, 30 years as a trauma surgeon, military service in Afghanistan and Iraq. Dr. Rodriguez, how do you know Shirley Harris? We served together in Afghanistan. Major Harris was the senior nurse in our combat surgical hospital. She saved my life in 2004 when I was wounded during an insurgent attack. And you've remained in contact since then? Yes, we're friends. When did you last see Mrs. Harris? 2 days ago. She came to the hospital regarding her daughter's admission to the ER. And in your professional medical opinion, what is Mrs. Harris's mental state? Pete looked directly at the judge. Mrs. Harris is one of the sharpest people I know. Her memory is excellent, her judgment is sound, and her cognitive function is completely normal for her age. In fact, it's better than most people half her age. Has she shown any signs of dementia, confusion, or incompetence? None whatsoever. Would you trust her to make her own medical decisions? Absolutely. What about financial decisions? Your Honor, I've seen Shirley Harris perform surgery under mortar fire. I've seen her manage a trauma bay with 20 casualties and no backup. If anyone is capable of managing their own affairs, it's her. Blackwell stood for cross-examination. Dr. Rodriguez, when was the last time you saw Mrs. Harris before 2 days ago? About 3 years ago. 3 years. So you can't speak to her mental state during the time period when she signed the power of attorney. No, but thank you, doctor. No further questions. Grace called me next. I walked to the stand, placed my hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth. Grace started with easy questions: my name, my age, my background. Then she got to the heart of it. Mrs. Harris, tell the court how you came to sign the power of attorney. I took a breath and told the truth. All of it. Adam came to visit me at my home in Cambridge 2 years ago. He said he was concerned about my future, that I was getting older and should have someone to help manage things, just in case. He made it sound so reasonable. He's a lawyer and I trusted him. Did he explain what powers the document would give him? He said it was just a safety measure, that I'd still have full control of my accounts, my house, everything. He said it was like insurance there if I needed it, but not active unless something happened to me. But that's not what happened. No. 6 months after I signed, he started making changes. First, small things: he convinced me to add his name to my bank accounts, for convenience. Then he suggested I move to Crestwood Meadows, said it would be safer for someone my age. He paid the first month himself, said it was a gift. When did you realize something was wrong? About 3 months into my stay at Crestwood. I tried to access my bank account online and discovered it had been frozen. When I called the bank, they told me that Adam had activated the power of attorney and taken control. I couldn't withdraw money, couldn't pay my own bills. I was completely cut off. Did you try to contact your stepson? Yes. He visited me once a month. Every time I asked about my accounts, he said he was taking care of everything, that I shouldn't worry. He made it sound like I was confused, like I didn't understand how things worked. How did that make you feel? Trapped, powerless, like I was losing my mind even though I knew I wasn't. Grace walked me through discovering the house sale, the emails, everything. I spoke calmly, clearly, never raising my voice. Blackwell's cross-examination was sharp. Mrs. Harris, isn't it true that you physically assaulted your son-in-law last night? I defended myself after he attacked me. A man 6 feet tall, and you claim he attacked you first. He was drunk and violent. I used minimal force to protect myself and my granddaughter. You put him on the ground. Yes. That doesn't sound like minimal force from a 69-year-old woman. I'm a retired Army nurse with 30 years of combat experience. I was trained in self-defense, and I'm perfectly capable of protecting myself when necessary. Mrs. Harris, isn't it possible that your perception of events is colored by your age, that you might be confused about what really happened? I looked him in the eye. Counselor, I'm not confused. I know exactly what happened. Your client stole from me. He manipulated me. He worked with my son-in-law to abuse my daughter. And I have the evidence to prove every word I'm saying. Your Honor, Blackwell said, this is speculation, and it's sworn testimony, Grace interrupted. Backed by documentary evidence and FBI investigation. Judge Weinstein held up a hand. I've heard enough. Mr. Blackwell, do you have any witnesses? Your Honor, I'd like to call Adam Harris's medical expert. Your client is in federal custody for crimes against the petitioner. Unless you have someone who can testify to actual incompetence on Mrs. Harris's part, I'm ready to rule. Blackwell hesitated. No, Your Honor. Then here's my ruling. Judge Weinstein looked at me. Mrs. Harris, based on the testimony I've heard today, and the evidence presented, I find that the power of attorney granted to Adam Harris was procured through fraud and undue influence. Said power of attorney is hereby voided effective immediately. Relief flooded through me. Furthermore, I'm ordering that all accounts, assets, and properties currently under Adam Harris's control be returned to Mrs. Harris within 72 hours. Mr. Blackwell, your client is to have no further contact with Mrs. Harris or her family. Understood. Yes, Your Honor. Good, we're adjourned. The gavel came down. Grace turned to me with a huge smile. You did it. We did it. Now comes the hard part, actually getting your assets back. But with the court order and the FBI's cooperation, it should be straightforward. What about Adam? What happens to him now? Federal trial for the fraud charges. Based on what Agent Park told me, he's looking at 10 to 15 years minimum, and that's if he takes a plea deal. 10 to 15 years. It should have made me feel satisfied, but all I felt was tired. Come on, Grace said. Let's go tell Clara the good news. We got back to the hospital at 4:30 p.m. Clara was sitting up in bed looking more alert. Leia was curled up next to her, drawing on a hospital notepad. We won, I said simply. Clara's face lit up. Really? Really? The power of attorney is voided. I get everything back, my accounts, my house, all of it. Oh, Mom. She started crying again, but this time they were happy tears. Grace pulled out more papers. And I have divorce papers ready for you to sign, Clara. Emergency custody agreement giving you sole custody of Leia and a restraining order against Dustin. Once you sign these, he won't be able to come within 500 feet of either of you. Clara took the pen with shaking hands. Where do I sign? 20 minutes later, it was done. Clara was legally separated from Dustin with full custody of Leia pending the final divorce hearing. What happens now? Clara asked. Now, Grace said, you focus on healing, both of you. The legal system will handle Dustin and Adam. And we go home, I added. Once you're released from the hospital, we go to the house in Cambridge, our house, and we start over. Leia looked up from her drawing. All of us together. All of us together, sweetheart. She smiled, really smiled for the first time since I'd arrived. Can I have my own room? You can have your own room. We'll paint it any color you want. Purple. Purple it is. That night after visiting hours ended, I went back to Crestwood to collect my things. Dennis Kowalski was at the front desk looking nervous when he saw me. Mrs. Harris, we heard about everything. The FBI called asking questions about Mr. Adam Harris. I'm checking out Dennis. Of course. I'll prepare your discharge papers. Jessica appeared from the hallway, her face lighting up when she saw me. Mrs. Harris, you're okay. More than okay, thanks to you. I pulled her aside. Jessica, what you did helping me get out, believing me, that took courage. Thank you. She blushed. I just knew you were telling the truth. Some of the other residents, they talk about their families taking advantage of them, and nobody listens. I thought if I could help you, maybe I could help others too. You can. You will. I handed her Agent Park's card. If you ever see something like this happening again, call her directly. The FBI is taking elder abuse cases seriously now. She took the card carefully. I will. I promise. I packed my few belongings, clothes, photos, my notebook with phone numbers. Everything I owned fit in one small suitcase. As I walked out of Crestwood Meadows for the last time, I felt something shift inside me. For 2 years, I'd been trapped, powerless, invisible. Not anymore. 3 days later, Agent Park called. Mrs. Harris, I wanted to update you on the case. Adam Harris has been formally charged with 12 counts of fraud, identity theft, and elder abuse. We've identified 6 victims total, including you. He's being held without bail pending trial. And Dustin charged with assault conspiracy to commit fraud and domestic violence. He's also being held. His mother and sister aren't being charged. We don't have enough evidence they knew about the financial crimes, but they're cooperating with the investigation. What about the house sale? The money? All frozen. The proceeds from any fraudulent transactions will be returned to the victims. You should have access to your full accounts by end of week. Thank you, Agent Park. Thank you, Mrs. Harris. What you did gathering that evidence standing up to them, you helped us take down someone who's been hurting vulnerable people for years. You should be proud. After she hung up, I sat in the hospital cafeteria with my coffee and thought about everything that had happened. 4 days ago, I'd been trapped in a nursing home cut off from my family, powerless to help my daughter. Now Adam was in jail, Dustin was in jail, Clara was safe, Leah was safe, and I was free. My phone buzzed. A text from Clara. Doctor says I can go home tomorrow. Can you believe it? Home. With you and Leah. I can't wait, Mom. I smiled and texted back. Me either, sweetheart. Me either. The sun was setting outside the cafeteria windows, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Somewhere in this city, my house in Cambridge was waiting. The house where I'd raised Clara, where I'd built a life. And now I'd build a new life there, with my daughter and granddaughter. The Major's last mission wasn't over yet, but we'd won the first battle, and sometimes that's all you need to keep fighting. 3 months later, I stood in the kitchen of my Cambridge house, watching autumn leaves fall through the window. The house smelled like cinnamon rolls, Leah's favorite. She'd asked me to teach her how to bake, and we'd been working through my old recipe book every Sunday morning. It had become our tradition. Grandma, they're ready, Leah called from the living room where she was setting the table for breakfast. I pulled the pan from the oven, the sweet smell filling the kitchen. Through the doorway I could see Clara coming down the stairs, moving more easily now. The cast had come off her arm 2 weeks ago, and the bruises had finally faded completely. She looked different these days, lighter somehow, like a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. Morning, Mom. She came into the kitchen, kissed my cheek. Those smell amazing. Your daughter's doing. She insisted on adding extra cinnamon. Clara smiled. She has good instincts. We sat down together at the dining room table, the same table where I'd fed Clara breakfast before school 30 years ago. The same table where we'd celebrated birthdays, holidays, ordinary Tuesdays. It felt right to have it full again. Leah took a huge bite of cinnamon roll, got frosting on her nose. Grandma, can Sarah come over after school tomorrow? We have a project for science class. Of course, sweetheart. Sarah was Leah's new friend from her new school. In the past 3 months, I'd watched my granddaughter slowly come back to life. She smiled more, talked more. The nightmares were getting less frequent. Her therapist, Dr. Ellen Morrison, said she was making remarkable progress. Children are resilient, Dr. Morrison had told us, especially when they feel safe. You've given her that. Clara's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and her expression changed. What is it? I asked. Grace. She says the trial date has been set. Dustin's trial is in 2 weeks. Adam's is next month. The cinnamon roll suddenly tasted like sawdust in my mouth. We'd known this was coming. The federal prosecutor had been building the case against both men for months. But knowing it was coming and having an actual date were 2 different things. Mom, I have to testify. Clara's voice was quiet. At both trials. I know, sweetheart. I don't know if I can face him. Dustin, in a courtroom with him looking at me with everyone watching, I reached across the table and took her hand. You don't have to decide right now. We have 2 weeks, and Grace will be there. I'll be there. You won't be alone. Leah looked up from her cinnamon roll, her eyes worried. Mommy, are you scared? Clara hesitated, then nodded. A little bit, baby, but sometimes we have to do scary things because they're the right thing to do. Like when Grandma went to the bad house to save us. Exactly like that. The call came 3 days later while I was volunteering at the VA hospital. I'd started working there again 2 months ago, just a few hours a week. It felt good to be useful, to use my skills to help people who'd served like I had. I was changing a dressing on a Marine sergeant's leg wound when my phone rang. Grace Martinez. Shirley, we have a problem. I stepped into the hallway. What kind of problem? Dustin's lawyer is trying to get the domestic violence charges dropped. He's claiming that Dustin acted in self-defense, that Clara provoked him, and that there's insufficient evidence of a pattern of abuse. What we have hospital records photos my testimony. I know, but his lawyer is good. Harrison Blackwell is representing Dustin too now. He's arguing that the one incident isn't enough to prove systematic abuse and that Clara's injuries could have been from a single fight that got out of hand. I felt anger rising in my chest. A fight that sent her to the hospital with a fractured arm and cracked rib. He's going to claim she attacked Dustin first, that he was defending himself, that it was a mutual altercation. That's a lie. I know it's a lie. You know it's a lie. But we need to prove it. Shirley, do you remember Clara mentioning anything about previous incidents? Anything documented? I thought back to that conversation in the hospital. She said it had been going on for 18 months, that it started small and escalated. But was any of it reported? Did she go to the doctor? Did anyone else witness it? I don't think so. She was too scared and isolated. Grace sighed. That's what I was afraid of. Without documentation of a pattern, it becomes he said, she said. And Blackwell is very good at creating reasonable doubt. So what do? We need to find evidence. Medical records, witnesses, anything that shows this wasn't a one-time incident. Can you ask Clara if there's anything she remembers? Any time she might have gone to urgent care or told a friend or... I'll ask her. I hung up and stood in the hospital hallway, my mind racing. There had to be something, some piece of evidence we'd missed. That evening I sat down with Clara in her room. She'd been reading one of the novels from the stack her old friend Michelle had brought over last week. Clara, we need to talk about the trial. She set down the book. I know. Grace called me too. Did she tell you what Dustin's lawyer is trying to do? Yeah, claim I attacked him first. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. Like I could attack someone twice my size. Grace needs evidence of a pattern, documentation. Did you ever go to the doctor for injuries before the hospital incident? Clara was quiet for a long moment. Once, about a year ago, Dustin shoved me during an argument and I hit my head on the kitchen counter. I had a concussion. I went to an urgent care clinic. Do you remember which one? Cambridge Urgent Care on Mass Ave. What did you tell them? I said I fell, hit my head on a cabinet. She looked down at her hands. I was too scared to tell the truth. Brenda was with me. She stood right there while I talked to the doctor, making sure I said the right thing. But there will be medical records. That's something. Mom, I lied to the doctor. How does that help? Because doctors are trained to recognize domestic violence. They document things even when patients lie. Bruising patterns, injury locations, behavioral signs. It might not be as good as you telling the truth, but it's better than nothing. I called Grace immediately. Cambridge Urgent Care about a year ago. Clara had a concussion. Can you subpoena the records? Absolutely. That's exactly what we need. Shirley, you're brilliant. Just doing what needs to be done. The records arrived 4 days later. Grace called me to her office to review them. She spread the pages across her desk, highlighting sections with a yellow marker. Look at this. The doctor noted bruising inconsistent with reported fall. And here patient appears, anxious, avoids eye contact. And this one accompanied by family member who answers questions for patient. So the doctor suspected. More than suspected. He documented it. And look, she pointed to another section. He offered Clara information about domestic violence resources. She declined, but he noted that too. Is it enough? Combined with everything else? Yes. It establishes a pattern. It shows that the hospital incident wasn't isolated. And it undermines Blackwell's defense that this was just one fight that got out of control. I felt something loosen in my chest. Thank God. There's more. I've been digging into Brenda and Karen's backgrounds. Brenda was arrested twice for assault in the 1990s. Both times the charges were dropped, but the arrests are on record. And Karen has a restraining order against her from an ex-boyfriend who claimed she was violent. Can you use that? It goes to credibility. If Blackwell tries to paint them as innocent bystanders, I can show they have a history of violent behavior. Grace leaned back in her chair. Shirley, I think we're going to win this. I really do. 1 week before Dustin's trial, something unexpected happened. I was in the garden with Leia helping her plant tulip bulbs for spring when a car pulled up in front of the house. A woman got out. She was probably in her 30s, thin with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked nervous. Can I help you? I called out. Are you Shirley Harris? I am. She walked up the front path slowly. My name is Rebecca Sullivan. I was married to Dustin Rakes, before Clara. Everything stopped. Leia looked up at me confused. I managed to smile at her. Sweetheart, why don't you go inside and wash up? I'll be there in a minute. Okay, Grandma. She ran inside, leaving me alone with Dustin's ex-wife. You were married to him? I asked. Rebecca nodded. For 3 years. We divorced 7 years ago. I saw the news about his arrest and I needed to come talk to someone who'd understand. Come inside, please. I made tea while Rebecca sat at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped around the mug like she was cold despite the warm house. I read about what he did to your daughter, she said quietly. The article said he broke her arm, cracked her rib. Yes, he did the same to me, twice. The second time I ended up in the hospital with a punctured lung. I sat down across from her. I'm so sorry. I pressed charges that time, but his mother Brenda, she hired an expensive lawyer. They made it go away. Said I was mentally unstable, that I'd attacked Dustin first. The charges were dropped and I just wanted to get away from him. So I agreed to a divorce with nothing. No alimony, no settlement. I just wanted out. Did you testify? Is there a record? There was a police report, but the case never went to trial. She looked at me with hollow eyes. I heard he was getting married again to Clara, and I almost called her to warn her. But I was too scared. I thought maybe he'd changed. That maybe it was just me who brought out that side of him. It wasn't you. It was never you. Tears started rolling down her cheeks. I could have saved her. If I'd just been brave enough to warn her. No. I reached across the table and took her hand. You were a victim too. What he did to you, what he did to Clara, that's on him. Not you. I want to help. I want to testify at his trial. I want everyone to know what kind of man he really is. I called Grace immediately. The day of Dustin's trial arrived. Suffolk County Superior Court was packed. The case had gotten media attention. Army veteran exposes family abuse ring was how the Boston Globe had headlined it. Reporters filled the back rows. I sat in the front row with Clara on one side and Rebecca on the other. Grace sat at the prosecutor's table with Assistant District Attorney Michael Romano, a sharp young prosecutor who'd made a name for himself on domestic violence cases. Dustin was led in wearing an orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed. He'd lost weight in jail. His face was drawn eyes sunken. He didn't look at Clara, didn't look at me. Harrison Blackwell sat at the defense table looking confident despite everything. Judge Patricia Weinstein, the same judge who'd voided Adam's power of attorney, presided. She looked at Dustin with clear distaste. Mr. Rakes, you're charged with aggravated assault, domestic violence, and conspiracy to commit fraud. How do you plead? Blackwell stood. Not guilty, Your Honor. Very well. Mr. Romano, call your first witness. Romano stood. The prosecution calls Clara Rakes. Clara's hand tightened on mine. I squeezed back. You can do this, I whispered. She stood and walked to the witness stand. Her hands were shaking as she was sworn in, but her voice was steady. Romano started gently. Mrs. Rakes, how long were you married to the defendant? 8 years. And during those 8 years, did he ever become violent with you? Yes. Can you tell the court about the first time? Clara took a breath. It was about 6 months into our marriage. He came home upset about something at work. I asked what was wrong, and he grabbed my wrist and twisted it, hard enough to bruise. Then he said I should mind my own business. What did you do? I apologized. I thought it was my fault, that I'd upset him. Did it happen again? Yes. It got worse over time. He'd push me, grab me too hard, call me names, tell me I was stupid, worthless, that no one else would ever want me. Her voice was getting stronger now. She looked directly at Dustin as she spoke. About a year ago, he shoved me during an argument, and I hit my head on the kitchen counter. I had a concussion. His mother took me to the urgent care clinic and stood there while I lied to the doctor. She told me if I said anything about Dustin, she'd make sure I lost custody of my daughter. And the incident that led to your hospitalization 3 months ago. Clara's voice hardened. He came home drunk. He'd lost money gambling. He started yelling at me, accusing me of hiding money from him. When I said I didn't have any money, he hit me, punched me in the face. When I fell, he kicked me in the ribs. His mother and sister held my arms so I couldn't defend myself. The courtroom was completely silent. "Why didn't you leave him earlier?" Romano asked gently. "Because I was terrified. Because he said if I left he'd find me. Because his family told me I deserved it, that I was a bad wife. Because I thought I could protect my daughter if I just stayed quiet." "Thank you, Mrs. Rakes. No further questions." Blackwell stood for cross-examination. His expression was sympathetic, almost kind. It made my skin crawl. "Mrs. Rakes, I'm sorry for what you've been through. Truly. But I need to ask, isn't it true that you and Mr. Rakes had arguments? That sometimes these arguments became heated? He hit me. That's not an argument. But you argued back, didn't you? You weren't always passive. I defended myself when I could. And isn't it possible that on the night in question you initiated the physical confrontation?" Clara's voice was ice. "No, I was sitting at the kitchen table when he came in. I didn't move. I didn't touch him. He attacked me." "You're asking us to believe that a man would attack his wife without provocation." "Objection," Romano called. "Argumentative." "Sustained," Judge Weinstein said. "Mr. Blackwell asked questions, don't make speeches." Blackwell tried a few more angles, but Clara didn't waver. When she stepped down, she walked back to her seat with her head high. I was so proud of her I could barely breathe. Romano called his next witness. "The prosecution calls Rebecca Sullivan." Dustin's head snapped up. He whispered frantically to Blackwell, who looked surprised. Rebecca walked to the stand, her spine straight, her voice clear. "Ms. Sullivan, you were previously married to the defendant." "Yes, from 2010 to 2013. "And during that marriage, was Mr. Rakes ever violent toward you?" "Yes, multiple times. He broke my wrist once. Another time he choked me until I passed out. The final incident, he beat me so badly I ended up in the hospital with a punctured lung." "Did you report these incidents?" "The last one, yes. I filed charges, but they were dropped after his family hired a lawyer who convinced the police that I was lying." "Why are you here today?" Rebecca looked directly at Dustin. "Because I want everyone to know the truth. Because I should have been brave enough to stop him 7 years ago, and maybe if I had, Clara wouldn't have suffered. Because he needs to be held accountable." Blackwell tried to discredit her on cross-examination, suggesting she was bitter about the divorce, that she was lying for attention. But Rebecca didn't break. Romano called Dr. Sarah Kim, next the urgent care physician who'd treated Clara a year ago. "Dr. Kim, when you examined Clara Rakes, what did you observe?" "Bruising on her upper arms, consistent with being grabbed. A concussion. And behavioral indicators that suggested domestic violence. She was anxious, avoided eye contact, and allowed the person accompanying her to answer most questions." "Did you suspect abuse?" "Yes. I documented my concerns in her chart and offered resources. She declined." "In your professional opinion, were her injuries consistent with the explanation she gave that she'd fallen and hit her head on a cabinet?" "No. The bruising pattern and location were not consistent with a fall." One by one, Romano built his case. Medical records, police reports, my testimony about finding Clara in the hospital, Agent Park's testimony about the emails between Adam and Dustin proving conspiracy. By the end of the second day, Blackwell looked tired. Dustin looked defeated. On the third day, the jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. "We find the defendant guilty on all counts." Clara grabbed my hand and started crying. Relief. Justice. Finally. Judge Weinstein set sentencing for 2 weeks later. Dustin was sentenced to 8 years in prison. Adam's trial came 3 weeks after that. It was bigger, more complex. The FBI had uncovered 6 victims, total 6 elderly people Adam had defrauded over 5 years. The total amount stolen was over $2 million. I testified about the power of attorney, about being isolated at Crestwood, about discovering the house sale. Jessica testified about Adam's instructions to keep me quiet and controlled. Agent Park presented the financial records showing the pattern of theft. The other victims testified too. An 82-year-old man who'd lost his retirement savings. A 75-year-old widow who'd been left penniless. Their stories were heartbreaking. Adam's defense was weak. Blackwell tried to argue that Adam had genuinely believed he was helping his clients, that any irregularities were mistakes, not crimes. The jury didn't buy it. Guilty on all counts. Adam was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison and ordered to pay full restitution to all victims. When the verdict was read, I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not triumph, just tired. Clara squeezed my hand. It's over, Mom. It's really over. Yes, sweetheart. It's over. 6 months after the trials, on a bright spring morning, I stood in Leia's bedroom watching her get ready for school. The walls were purple, just like she'd wanted. We'd painted them together, all three of us, getting more paint on ourselves than on the walls. Clara had laughed so hard she'd cried, and it was the first time I'd seen her really truly happy in years. "Grandma, can you braid my hair?" Leia asked. "Of course, sweetheart." She sat on the bed and I worked her hair into a French braid the way I used to do for Clara when she was little. "Grandma, are you happy?" The question caught me off guard. "Why do you ask, baby?" "Because Mommy says you spent a long time being sad, when the bad people were mean to you. But you seem happy now." I finished the braid and turned her around to face me. "I am happy, Leia. Very happy. Do you know why?" She shook her head. "Because I'm here with you and your Mommy. Because we're safe. Because we have this beautiful house and each other. That's what real happiness is, not fancy things or money, but being with people you love." "I love you, Grandma." "I love you too, sweetheart. More than anything." That afternoon, Grace called with news. "Shirley, I have an update on the restitution payments. The court has ordered the sale of Adam's assets, his house, his car, everything. Combined with the recovery of funds from the shell companies, you should receive approximately $850,000. That's more than he stole from me. The house appreciated in value, and there's penalty interest. It's all yours." I was quiet for a moment. "Grace, what about the other victims, the ones who lost their retirement savings?" "They'll get their money back too. The court is dividing Adam's assets proportionally among all 6 victims." No. I want my share divided among the other 5, equally." Grace was silent. "Shirley, that's incredibly generous, but you don't have to. I have the house, I have my pension, I have enough. Those other people, they need it more than I do. Please." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." After I hung up, Clara came into the kitchen. "I heard. Mom, you don't have to give away your money." "I'm not giving it away. I'm sharing it with people who need it. There's a difference." She hugged me tight. "You're amazing. You know that. I'm just doing what's right." On a Saturday morning in June, we had a barbecue in the backyard. Clara had invited her old friends, the ones she'd lost touch with during the marriage. Michelle, Sarah, Jennifer. They came with their families, and the yard filled with laughter and conversation. Leia played with the other children, running through the sprinklers, shrieking with joy. Jessica came too, bringing her new boyfriend. She was still working at Crestwood, but had become an advocate for elder abuse awareness. She'd testified at 3 more cases in the past 6 months. "Mrs. Harris," she said, "I wanted to thank you. What you did standing up fighting back, it inspired me. I'm enrolling in law school next fall. I want to help people like you." "Jessica, that's wonderful. It's because of you. You showed me that one person can make a difference." Pete Rodriguez showed up with a bottle of wine and stories about his grandkids. Grace came with her wife and their twin daughters. Agent Park stopped by briefly off duty wearing jeans and a t-shirt. "Just wanted to check in, see how you were doing." "I'm doing well. Thank you for everything." "Thank you, Mrs. Harris." The case against Adam had opened up a whole investigation into elder abuse in law firms. We've identified 3 more attorneys using similar schemes. You started something important. As the sun set, I stood on the back porch, watching everyone. Clara was laughing with Michelle, really laughing the way she used to before Dustin. Leia was showing off her cartwheel to the other kids. My house was full. My family was safe. Justice had been served. Grace appeared beside me, 2 glasses of wine in hand. She offered me one. "To Major Shirley Harris," she said, "who faced down the enemy and won." "To family," I corrected. "The real victory." We clinked glasses. That night, after everyone had left and Leia was asleep, Clara and I sat on the porch swing together. "Mom," she said quietly, "I've been thinking about going back to school, maybe getting my teaching degree. I always wanted to be a teacher before I met Dustin. I think that's a wonderful idea. But it'll take time and money, and I'd need help with Leia." "Clara," I stopped her. "You can take all the time you need. This is your home. Leia is my granddaughter, and I love spending time with her. Go to school. Follow your dreams. We'll figure out the rest together." She leaned her head on my shoulder. How did you do it, Mom? How did you stay strong through everything? I thought about that, about the 2 years at Crestwood, about finding Clara in the hospital, about facing down Dustin, about the trials, about all of it. I didn't always feel strong, I said honestly. There were nights I cried myself to sleep, days I wanted to give up, but I had something they couldn't take away from me. What you and Laya, the knowledge that you needed me, that gave me strength when I didn't think I had any left. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry I didn't help you sooner. I should have. Stop. You were a victim too. We both were. But we're not victims anymore. We're survivors, and there's a big difference. We sat in comfortable silence listening to the crickets watching fireflies dance in the yard. Do you think we'll be okay? Clara asked. Really okay. I think we already are, sweetheart. We already are. 3 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. It was from a woman named Margaret Porter, one of Adam's other victims. She was 80 years old, had lost her entire retirement savings to him. Dear Mrs. Harris, I heard what you did dividing your restitution among the rest of us. I don't have words to express my gratitude. Because of your generosity, I can stay in my home instead of moving in with my son. I can afford my medications. I can live with dignity. But more than the money, you gave me something else, hope. When Adam stole from me, I felt so helpless, so stupid for trusting him. I thought I was weak and foolish. But then I heard your story, how you fought back, how you wouldn't give up. And I realized I wasn't weak. I was victimized by a criminal. There's a difference. Thank you for showing me that. Thank you for fighting not just for yourself, but for all of us. With deepest gratitude, Margaret Porter, I read the letter twice, tears running down my face. Clara found me in the kitchen, still holding it. Mom, what's wrong? Nothing's wrong. I wiped my eyes. Everything's right. I showed her the letter. She read it, then hugged me tight. See? She whispered. You're a hero, Mom. I'm not a hero. I'm just a mother who did what needed to be done. That's what heroes are, Mom. People who do what needs to be done even when it's hard. On a sunny afternoon in October, exactly 1 year after that terrible morning when Leah called me from the hospital, I stood in the backyard watching my daughter and granddaughter rake leaves. Leah jumped into the pile, scattering leaves everywhere. Clara laughed and jumped in after her. Grandma, come on, Leah called. I'm too old to jump in leaf piles, sweetheart. You're not too old. You're never too old. Clara grinned at me. She's right, Mom. You're never too old. So I did. I ran and jumped into the pile of leaves, and we all laughed until our sides hurt. Later, as the sun set and we sipped hot cider on the porch, Leah asked me a question. Grandma, will you tell me a story? What kind of story? A story about when you were in the army, about being brave. I thought about all the stories I could tell. Stories from Afghanistan, from Iraq, from 30 years of service. But I told her a different story. Once upon a time, I began, there was a grandmother who thought she was powerless. She'd been locked away, cut off from the people she loved, made to feel small and invisible. Leah snuggled against me. Clara took my hand. But then she got a phone call from her granddaughter. And that phone call reminded her of something important. She wasn't powerless at all. She was strong. She was capable. She was exactly who she'd always been, a fighter, a protector, a warrior. What did she do? Leah asked. She fought back, not with anger or revenge, but with courage and intelligence. She gathered evidence. She asked for help. She stood up to the people who'd hurt her family. And in the end, she won. Because she was brave. Because she had something worth fighting for. Her family. Leah looked up at me with those big, trusting eyes. Is that story about you, Grandma? Yes, sweetheart. It's about all of us. About how we're stronger than we think. About how family is the most important thing. About how it's never too late to fight for what's right. She hugged me tight. I want to be brave like you when I grow up. You already are, baby. You already are. That night, after Laya was in bed and Clara had gone to her room to study, I sat alone in the kitchen with a cup of tea. On the refrigerator was a drawing Leah had made in art class. It showed 3 stick figures holding hands labeled Grandma, Mommy, and me. Above them, she'd written in careful letters, my family. I thought about everything we'd been through, the pain, the fear, the long, hard fight for justice. And I thought about where we were now, safe, together, healing. My phone buzzed. A text from Grace. News from the prosecutor. Adam's appealing his sentence. Probably won't go anywhere, but wanted you to know. How are you doing? I texted back. I'm good. Better than good. We're moving forward. Another text, this one from Agent Park. 2 more victims of similar schemes came forward today. Referenced your case as inspiration. You started a wave. Mrs. Harris. And 1 more from Jessica. Got accepted to law school, starting next fall. Thank you for everything. I smiled and set the phone down. The house was quiet now. Peaceful. Outside, an owl hooted in the big oak tree in the backyard. The same tree where Clara used to swing as a child. Everything comes full circle, I thought. I'd spent 30 years in the military fighting battles in distant countries. I'd thought those were the important fights, the ones that mattered. But the most important battle I'd ever fought had been right here. For my daughter. For my granddaughter. For our family. And we'd won, not because I was strong, though I was, not because I was smart, though I'd learned to be, but because I'd refused to give up, because I'd remembered who I was, because I'd had something worth fighting for. I finished my tea, rinsed the cup, and turned off the kitchen light. Upstairs, I could hear Laya's soft breathing through her open door. Clara's light was still on, studying, preparing for her future. I stood in the hallway between their rooms, this quiet guardian in the night, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Complete peace. The Major's last mission was complete. We were home. We were safe. We were family. And that was enough. That was everything.